I can do that now.
There we go. We are back on episode 49 of the We All Serve podcast. Angel, wow, this is quite an intense scene we're seeing right there. He's setting up his standing desk. Angel, all kidding aside.
This is like when rock stars are in the middle of a stage and they like get elevated to the beginning and they're getting ready to go out. This is like the stage is coming up to me.
I like it. But Angel, pinch me if this is real, because man, we took a little break and now we are back.
Yeah.
And this is the first time we're having two guests on at once. So this is like double trouble.
It is, and you're still in Texas. I was hoping you were going to come back because I was missing you, but you've so many wonderful things. You're making such a huge impact out there in Texas. I think they need you a lot more than I do right now. So,
it's crazy how things change, but things stay the same. I mean, who thought that, now we're basically September of 2021. COVID continues to terrorize everywhere.
Yeah.
Obviously,
we're dealing with the Delta. Yeah.
The Delta. But man, oh man. Well, either way, it is so awesome to be back with you, brother. Thank you for coming back and not running away from me.
It is. And I just want to have a shout out, man. Just tell you, the impact and the things you're doing with what's going on over in Afghanistan and all the work the Chaplain Corps is doing out Fort Bliss and contributing. Thank you so much. I mean, it's so great to know that long after my old ass is gone, that young bucks and people that generally want to take care of soldiers, sailors, and Marines and airmen and coasties are still out there, doing the right things. And I'm really grateful for you.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. And it's been gratifying to see the outpouring of support. But I have to say, you missed one category. You missed the Guardians.
Space Force?
Yeah, you missed the Guardians. You missed them.
Aren't they in Cleveland? The Cleveland Guardians? That's what they are now?
I like it. No, honestly, I'm still working. I'm not going to rest until we get a Guardian on our podcast. I mean, we've had Coasties now, but it's time. It is time to have a Guardian.
You're like the USO. We're going to stay open until they all come home. Okay, dude, whatever.
Goodness.
Let's keep going.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so the requisite reminder for our fans out there that again, we're back, and the best way to be notified of all of the new episodes, and we've got some awesome ones I'll talk about next week in a moment, but is to subscribe, rate, review, and share the podcast, which you can find on all of your favorite platforms. And it will give you all the reminders that we're there. And we've got some awesome episodes coming up. We had to reschedule last week's guest because Chaplain Colonel Shabazz, the highest ranking Muslim.
Such a bullshit excuse. So
I know.
So trivial.
Yeah, like real world missions.
To go to Afghanistan.
Yeah, it's crazy. But next week, oh my God, I've got one of yours. I got a sailor out there. We've got Priya Sridhar, who's an NBC political reporter in San Diego, and she is a Navy officer, Naval Reserve officer, public affairs officer. So she has got quite the background. I can relate. She came into the Navy a little bit later in life, and she's going to share all of the experiences. And I don't think we're going to talk too much politics, but she's got a lot of expertise and a lot of stuff. So it'll be fun.
It's exciting.
Yeah, you're doing okay though?
Yeah, we're in the new place, and they got the office set up, and things are great. I'm happy. It's quiet out here. And they let me in the neighborhood, so that's always good. No one's chasing me out yet. So. Pretty amped about that.
Well, we've got two guests, as I said earlier, which means we're going to have to pack it all into our. It's always a quick format. I do my radio show, as you know, Angel, and in that I've got like 6 minutes. But honestly, with our conversations over here, I just feel like even a half hour or 45 minutes, it's never enough time to talk about everything. So let me bring these handsome fellas up here on the screen. There we go. We got Brian Marren and Greg Williams. So let me do a quick intro on both of them, and I know we've got a lot to talk to them about. So Greg Williams is a decorated veteran urban law enforcement professional. Honestly, his resume goes on and on because he's held virtually every law enforcement position, from patrol officer, shift supervisor, SWAT director, undercover, narcotics operations supervisor, undersheriff, interim chief of police, and he's done all sorts of things in the world of the 5th Judicial District's Drug Task Force. He's trained so many law enforcement and military units from around the country and frankly from around the world, including NATO. And I'm really interested in talking about some of those international assignments. He's worked on the U.S. Marine Corps Special Operations Training Group, JFCOM, the Joint Forces Command, all sorts of interesting assignments. We're going to talk all about that. Brian Marren over there, he's the Senior Vice President of Operations. I should have mentioned Greg and Brian are together at Arcadia Cognerati, and Brian is the Senior Vice President of Operations. Brian is also a decorated Marine high threat protection security professional and subject matter expert on human behavior pattern recognition and analysis. And he spent the past 18 years conducting both real world and training operations all over the United States, Middle East, and both Central and East Asia, supporting the U.S. military, foreign partners, private industry, and state, local, and federal agencies. So without further ado, Brian and Greg, thanks so much for joining us on We All Serve.
Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. Angel always gets the first question because he's, you know, I've missed him. So I just have to turn the mic over to him.
Cool. Guys, how the hell did you guys meet?
That's a great question. Now you know we have to talk fast only because the resumes took up the beginning of the show, and I don't know who wrote mine, but I love it. I think that's great. Now I
have my standing desk up high so I can hide underneath it because I'm kind of scared of you, dude.
Oh, come on, man! It's all love here. So Marren and I, the funny thing about Marren is that I was working on the Marine Corps Combat Hunter program, and so it was a work in progress, and Marines were being sent forward, and so I'd go and pick up with a unit and do some training there and come back, and no matter where I was in the world, and specifically where I was in the United States, I'd run in front of Marren or run behind Marren or walk by Marren, and I'd be going like, hey, and back then it was hey Marine because I couldn't remember his name all the time, and then after about the first year of doing that every couple of weeks, it was hey Brian, it was hey Greg, and then after I don't know what it was, probably 2 or 3 years of those happenstance meetings, I'm getting off at Kandahar Airfield, and I'm coming out, and there's all kind of smoke in the horizon and the typical mayhem that's going on. And I walk almost right into Marren, and I go, hey, what's going on? And right then I thought it dawned on me, there's some reason that God, Buddha, Vishnu, Allah keeps putting us together. Marren, what are you doing for the rest of your life? Let's get together. Now his memory of it might be slightly different.
That's a much better.
Yeah, he said you owe me $20.
Yeah,
yeah. That's a much better version of the.
You drank all my scotch.
It's a work release program that my parole officer got for me. So I got early release, and I get to go work with Greg. And so basically what happened. But it was once again Kabul airport, Greg, not Kandahar. Yeah. But whatever. K was in Afghanistan. Close enough.
That's you guys are getting older. Your memory's going.
Well, at least I was gonna say at least you got the country right. But yeah.
Listen. Normally, when I'm telling a story, I don't want the facts to get in the way of the good story. So I just throw out where we were and let the people that were there go.
No, that's interesting. Yeah.
No, it was in Bahrain. It's much
that's pretty what it was. We were working on the project, initially back in the Combat Hunter program. I was at Camp Pendleton working on a project that kind of all fell under this future immersive training environment, joint capabilities, technology demonstration, a lot of testing and evaluation of training and what it was for. And, so we were kind of at that. I was luckily at a, fly on the wall for most of it at a low tactical level, the one who actually had to make this stuff work in a training environment, not one of the big brain scientists running around. But then we met there, and then just like Greg said, kept running into each other. I think it was finally like 2012 or 13 in Afghanistan. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I'm like, I'm working right now, and also I was not here, so do not tell anyone. And then he said, "Why don't you come work with me?" I finished up that rotation with what I was doing at the time, and then that was since 2013. We've been working together ever since.
I'm going to roll into a follow-on question if I can, and it's around what you guys were doing, not in specifics, but one thing that I experienced in 2004, 2005, working with the Iraqi forces, security forces, is we were training. The intent was to train them so they could run their own security on the oil platform, security on the oil platforms and protect themselves. And because we were there, it felt like they didn't want to adopt and take over and run their own show. And that's how I interpret it. Okay, that's how it really happened. Did you guys feel that was a lot of the case in most places that you were at where you were tasked with training the forces and like, yeah, no, the U.S. has kind of got it?
It kind of, in my experience, it depended on where you're at, who you were working with. Obviously, some more of the specialized units you're going to get more work out of. I worked with some great commando units before, and then, conventional forces, police force. So it depends on what type of training they had. In Iraq, I wasn't so much my experience as, oh, you guys got it, was more just, yeah, we get it, but we're on inshallah time, and if Allah wills it to happen, it will happen. And I get it. And it was just, they don't have the same sense of urgency that we did. But depending on in terms of a capability, are they going to be like the United States? Well, no, but that would be foolish to think that we could train them to that standard. That wasn't really the goal or intent. It was for them to do it their way, and they're always going to do it their way. So, some may be biding their time. Some, it's just training and education level for a lot of them just weren't what even an 18-year-old coming to the military here is in the U.S. So there was that, but it really depended on where you're at and what you want to do, and how they felt the situation was personally affecting them and their family.
Yeah, and I had a distinct advantage over Brian. I was in the military before I was a copper. I was a copper for 3 decades, and a lot of that was doing dope work. So I understand doper time. Doper time is whatever time they decide to get up at the crack of 11, and whatever deal that they're going to meet with you, it's going to happen at a certain time. A lot of times when you were dealing with indigenous forces, no matter where you went, even coalition forces, they had sort of a flexible timeline. So what you had to do is you had to decide, am I going to be anxiety filled for the rest of this tour, or am I going to just go with the flow and make things happen on the local time? And I found that worked best for me.
Wow. So Angel and I always do this. Angel likes to get right to the nuts and bolts, and I want to take a step back. I want to talk about military service. So really, a question for both of you is, what initially caused you to walk into what drugs were you on that caused you to walk into a recruiter's office and take the oath? And ultimately, it's clearly changed both of your lives. Greg, you were just obviously saying about the career that you had pre-military, but it sounds like it's, as we always say on this podcast, we all serve. You're continuing your military service in many, many capacities. So for both of you, Greg, I'll start with you on this one. What brought you into the military?
Yeah, so I had an entire path written down on a yellow pad for my life. I had a primary candidacy to West Point. I thought, hey, as soon as I'm out of high school in East Detroit, I'm going to go to West Point. This is going to be great. And then somebody walked up and goes, you do know that that's an engineering school, and you thought algebra was a language. So what I did is I got an invitation. No, it's not. I got an invitation to the prep school. I showed up at the West Point prep school, and I'd never met a bigger band of nerds in my life. And I go, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to thrive here. So I said, okay, what's my options? And they said, well, just go to college for a couple of months and then, get these prerequisites and you go straight to West Point. I went to Northern Michigan University, spent my entire time brawling and chasing women and alcohol and playing hockey. And the next thing I know, I was parked in Green Bay, Wisconsin at a U.S. Army induction center. I put my Suzuki GS 550 up on the center stand and walked in just like John Candy in stripes and said, hey, Eisenhower. And next thing I know, I was in, man. I was in. And that's the truest story you'll ever hear.
Yeah, Brian, over to you. You've got to beat that one.
No. So I started as a kid, fascinated with the military stuff. When I was a little kid was when Desert Storm was going on, and I was super into it. I knew I had maps and stuff in my room. I was following it on CNN back then. Yeah. And so it was just something always fascinating. And just, there's a lot of people in the neighborhood. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. There's a lot of kids that go into the Marine Corps, especially, and military in general from our neighborhood. And so it was kind of part of it. And then I initially, attempted going to college after high school, and that's when my freshman year 9/11 happened. That kind of sealed the deal for me. I tried to stay there for a little while, but it was always nagging at me. And same thing, I walked into a recruiter's office and was like, hey, I'm here to do this, and and that was it. I want to, and they tried to have this whole talk, well, what do you want to do? I was like, that. And it's guys jumping on planes and pictures of snipers. I was like, I want to do that stuff. And they're like, do you know anything about this? I was like, not really. And so that was it. I was like, sign me up. And I was like, well, I want to get in and get over there. you know, I don't want to miss my chance to go to war. And that was in 2002 or 3 or whatever. So had I known what I know now, maybe, you know, I would have finished up school or something back then rather than trying to do it years later, which I eventually did. But, you know, it was just, you know, one of those things where I wanted to go, one, serve my country. Service has always been a part of my family and my upbringing. Grew up like going to you know, Catholic school in Chicago, like you, and growing up in an Irish Catholic neighborhood. You know, there's a expectation of service and, you know, helping out your community and the poor and everything, so that you just have that in you as a human being. So you know, service in the military is no different. It wasn't a big leap, and then so that's what kind of brought me in. And then of course we had a war going on, and I was like, hey, I want to go. I want to know what that's like. So,
and I have to say, as you said, you did finish college. You now have a master's in applied psychology from the University of Southern California. So good job. You did finish what you started.
Thank you.
A couple of years, but
it did. Yeah, a lot of people go to college for 7 years. So
yeah, and I
call them doctors.
Yeah,
I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming.
And I have to ask both of you regarding your time in uniform, and you know, feel free to go with this as you please. Brian, we'll continue on your story over here. Tell us about your you know, your best friend or greatest mentor from your service, and where that experience, where that connection, that aha moment, that boy to man moment occurred.
It's tough. I had a wonderful and horrible experience, as the military should be. It's, as I tell people, it's the greatest and absolute worst time of your life, sometimes in the same day. But I got to see the good, the bad, and ugly in terms of leadership and mentorship and behavior and how people are in situations. So I was fortunate for all of those experiences. But I had a really, really good, like, you know, I came in at the time where it was high op tempo. Everyone was going to combat. You know, my first deployment was 2004, Al Anbar province of Iraq in Ramadi. So it was literally the Wild West, and like the insurgency was just getting started. So we were figuring it out as we go along. So in terms of, you know, when you're in those chaotic times at the beginning of a war like that, you know, it's not always what you train for, and the people who are in charge suddenly who can't handle it, they get told to sit out on the sidelines, and people then take over, and you know, so I got to see a lot of tumultuous things within the unit as well, but we did really well. We had great leadership. And then great experience I had was a guy, a gunnery sergeant. Well, he was staff sergeant, then gunny, picked up gunny at the time, Roger Dickinson. He was well known in the sniper community, and I was team leader in the sniper platoon. And when he came over and took over, we knew him as the chief instructor at the schoolhouse when we went through there. So we were terrified of him because he had a reputation, and he was basically like bipolar. Like, he was just incredible.
Wait, you were downrange with the guy who taught you?
Yeah, eventually later on. Yeah, but
wow.
he was a chief instructor, and so he had a reputation, and he came in and took over our platoon. And, you know, he just sat on the sidelines for 2 weeks and didn't say much, and then took out the team leaders to dinner one night and said, hey, this is how I want to start we're starting a pre-deployment workup. And, you know, he laid it out and said, look, this is what I want. First of all, and he looked right at me, he goes, you're all getting high reg haircuts this weekend. And I went, oh God, here we go. He's like, look, here's how it works. When you're doing your job and we're in the field and we're training, I don't care what you look like and what you do. If you can show me that it makes you better at your job, then I will 100% support what you do. He goes, when we're in garrison, you will look, act, and talk like a Marine is supposed to. And we're all like, oh man, you know, because we're a bunch of snipers. We're like, dude, low reg haircuts. Like, you know, I'd rather hump a ruck over every ridge line on Camp Pendleton than walk in formation. You know what I'm saying? And he goes, but don't worry, we're not going to be in garrison very much. And he was right, because we were just nonstop training. But he really was one of the best at showing you, this is what it is. This is what that means. Yes. Do people take that stuff and those traditions way too far? Yeah. But if you look like you're that, and the sergeant major looks at you walking by, you know, when he's driving past in his vehicle, you're good. You do whatever you want in the field, and they'll never touch you. And they never did. And we had, I mean, to the point where even on deployment, we had the sergeant major pull me into his office because he's like, hey, Sergeant Marren, just want to talk to you real quick. You guys are doing an incredible job out there. I got to ask you to do one thing. I understand how you operate. I'm totally okay with it. But take a look at your team. All I want you to do is pick one uniform. all of you need to be wearing the same uniform. And like, I look at one guy's wearing like the frog
Hence the
top.
name, uniform.
I'm wearing like a track suit. Another guy's got a flight suit on. Like someone's got, I'm like, okay, sorry, mate, I see what you're saying. Like, this is a little bit too much. I got you, done. Like, don't worry about it. But it was like that, you know, it was showing both sides of being really good operationally and in garrison, what that meant, and showing and demonstrating what leadership really is and how to mentor people and how to actually bring someone up to speed and how to realize when you're past that point and you got to cut someone, you know, you got to drop them from the count and you can't give them any responsibility. And like seeing that in a dynamic environment, you know, that was incredible. That was definitely my most eye-opening mentor that I've ever had, especially at that young age.
Incredible. Greg, your turn.
Wow. So talk about a different way of seeing the rest of the world. I was in Detroit. I was trying to outrun my criminal past. I had this great lineup of West Point. Then I got the first girl I ever made love to pregnant. So now it's the prep school to Northern Michigan to the problem child thing. And I don't know if you know much about Michigan. Michigan's like this. I guess it'd be like this. And Detroit's here. And, you know, Northern Michigan University is way up there because I just kept running. I was running from everything. I was running from authority, running from my family. Went to Green Bay the first time just to sign up. Then the next thing was, what base you want to go to? And it's like, I don't care where you send me anywhere. The idea was that I had no idea that the military was going to give me the structure and the motivation and the mentorship. So I remember that even in basic training, I remember his name, Sergeant First Class Juan Saucedo. They came up to me and said, you know, you're big, you know how to fight, you're smart, you think you got the world figured out. But this is day one, Fort Knox, Kentucky, baby. That's back when they did the infantry at Knox as well, not just at Benning. And took me to what was called the 6-man room. And made me look at the world through a swollen eye a little bit differently because I was too much of a smart aleck. I made Sergeant E5 in 2 years and 2 days, which was a division record because of that man, because he knocked me down and taught me how to get back up.
Amazing.
Let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about, I mean, we call it, in the Navy, we call it deck plate leadership. That's where, you know, you kind of go behind the steam pipes and figure stuff out. But one of the most important, one of the most memorable people that led me and actually saved my career was directly aligned with what you were saying, Greg. What were some of the things that he did that kind of, and because this is kind of a leadership podcast, or what are some of the leadership things that he did that kind of really said, wow, he gives a shit about me. He's just not a bully. He just really cares about me as a person.
No, that's a great question too. And Angel, one of the things was that he was never too good to. He changed his uniform. Now you got to remember, this is everybody's gone through basic training, but this is a memory that was so profound in basic training that it stayed with me my entire life. He changed uniforms 6-7 times a day, so he always was perfect. He shaved 2 or 3 times a day. We'd be doing the run in the morning, and everybody, I mean, you got to think about it. It's Kentucky in the hills, right? You know, up agony, down misery. By the time he got back, I don't know how he shit showered and shaved so quickly, but he would be back in that look all the time. So he was a person that said, this is my discipline. This is how I look. This is how I speak. But he was never, ever too high not to take a knee, you know, get off that high horse and get down and say, this is the way that you brush your teeth. This is the way that you fold your socks. And that's what bothered me, because at the beginning, I was like, you know, I'm sitting around here with these guys and they don't know how to function. They don't know how to operate. What I didn't understand is that the things he was teaching us was not how to brush our teeth or make a bed. We already knew how to do those. What he was teaching me is discipline, psychological, sociological, and physiological discipline, not just internal, but external, and how to operate in a group. He taught me more about being an adult. My dad was a Marine, and my dad resented the fact that I went into the United States Army. I only did it because the Army was offering a bonus. That's everything about me was making a decision to poke you in the eye. But what he was able to do is he was able to not do what my dad tried to beat into me or beat out of me. He knocked me down. Okay, now I got to listen to you. And then he built me back up, and he showed me these are the things that are important in life. This is how you can take this and exploit this opportunity and make everybody a winner. You know, not just get to the finish line, but bring your entire team in for the win. And that was hugely important to me.
At an early stage too.
Yeah. I mean, you got to think. I've got a kid. I had to write the letter. I don't know how many of your viewers or listeners remember the little postcard that they make you write to your family to tell them you're not in prison, you're not dead. This is where you're going. My wife is having a baby in Menominee, Wisconsin, and I'm standing there getting punched by a guy that's twice my age, telling me I got to open my ears and shut my mouth. It was such a static environment before that, and such a dynamic environment just moments later.
Wow, that really has me kind of floored, and for a couple of reasons, but mostly because your background in law enforcement and having grown up in the law enforcement environment myself. My dad was a homicide detective, and going, yep, and whatever they said, I want to go the opposite direction. How about you, Brian? Were you kind of the same way? You were a pretty good guy, good Catholic Irish school kid.
I don't know what the statute of limitations is, so I'm going to be real careful. But no,
where did you grow up in Chicago, by the way?
What's that?
Where did you grow up in Chicago?
On the South Side in Beverly.
Okay, got it. Oh, there's all kinds of cops out there.
Yeah, it's all cops and firemen. Yeah, it's all my friends there. It's all cops or firemen. So that's our neighborhood. But no, I mean, same thing. No, I did not. I was a handful as a kid in a number of ways. I hated school, but I was good at it naturally. I just didn't like applying myself. I didn't want to do what my parents wanted me to do. We had all kinds of stuff going on at home. My sister had health problems, so there's that we couldn't control and deal with. And then my parents had what we call baby boy oops, my brother who's 8 years younger than me. So I had to help out with him. So I was just kind of like the forgotten child for quite a long time. And even when I went from one high school to second high school, my old man had to walk in there because my sister was in the hospital again. He literally had to tell the principal, like, look, you don't understand. You have to enroll him in this high school. Like, you can't take any more time. This is what's going on in my life right now. And if I'm going to turn around, it's going to be 2 years later and this kid's never going to have graduated high school. The principal was like, okay, he can start tomorrow. And he's like, no, put him in the class right now. And he goes, you can go join them over there. Just let me sit in the class for the rest of the day, because we had a lot going on. So no, I was not always the best or the easiest kid at home, but at the same time, my old man, he grew up on the South Side in a rough neighborhood. He was in the Marine Corps. He made himself. He did not have a great experience getting out with that. He was injured in Vietnam, and he got booted out of a VA hospital, addicted to drugs. You know what I mean? Didn't have a life for a few years, and then had to pick himself together, put himself through school, start his own business, all that stuff on his own. So, he was not, you weren't getting any sympathy from him. That's for sure. He did not care. And so, yeah, at the same time, as much of a handful, we all can laugh and joke about it now, because I was like, hey, what did you expect? I'm your son. And he's like, I know. And you're right. He's like, you're completely right. So, I mean, it's good now. But
he's probably going, you turned out pretty good, kids, all things considered.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
yeah. He's happy. So.
Wow. So I want to start to talk about, I can't believe time is flying over here. I want to start to talk about Arcadia Cognerati and the work that you're doing, and how all of those things that we've just been spending the past half hour talking about, how it's led to the work that you're doing, the impact that you're having. And I also want to make sure we talk about some of the organizations you're involved in. I know, Brian, you're involved in Carry the Load. So, I mean, it's all about, continued service. And Greg, I think it was you that said something in our early conversation. You said, you know what, money's fun and all that, but ultimately you're just having, it sounds like the time of your life right now in continuing the consulting and the impact. So let's talk about it, Greg. What do you do every day?
So other than being a serial killer, that's the only job I haven't held for any length of time. So
I was worried because Brian just talked about statute of limitations, and if you admit something right here, I am an MP and I do have to take you in.
I get it, but I know you also have a religious background, so you can absolve me of my sin. So the idea is very simple. I've had nothing but a blessed life my entire life. Hardships to me are just a challenge to overcome, and they make you stronger and smarter and faster. So I've done all of these cool things in my life, and all of a sudden, my wife, who's the best human behavior profiler, best street cop from Detroit that you'll ever meet in life, we decided, hey, we're going to try to retire. So we bought a dude and guest ranch in Colorado, and we're in the middle of nowhere in a dude and guest Ranch on Colorado and in Colorado rather, and 2 black Suburbans show up from Gunnison, little town airport. And a bunch of people come out, and I see them. I'm on a horse coming in, imagine the size of that horse, hey? And I'm on a horse coming in with a drop off.
Clydesdales. Yeah, Clydesdales in Colorado. It's amazing.
We do now. And so I walk up and I see him checking in at the office, and I'm going, what the hell is going on? And with the guy named Don Yeager. Don's just look up the Yeager clan, and it is the same one. And and I'm walking to the office, and these guys, everybody looks and they go, that's him. And I go, I'm hooked. Something I did back in Detroit when I was a copper, it's caught up to me finally. And they said, hey, are you the guy that's from Detroit that leads out these elk hunts? And I said, yeah. Well, here's how I learned how to elk hunt. The very first thing was that I had to have Don Yeager show me what an elk looked like in a hunting magazine. And then he taught me about, hey, listen, this is the place that you have to shoot them. And we did those kind of things. And what happened to fast track it was not only was I a copper, not only was I a hood and a hood rat, but I had this hunting experience. And this guy from the United States Marine Corps that was keeping things real quiet said, you got to come meet this guy named Jim Mattis. And it was like, oh, that's great. So whirlwind tour later, the next thing I know, I meet a guy named Jim Conway because Iraq wasn't violent enough. And he says, hey, have you ever been to Afghanistan? No. And I'm on a plane to Afghanistan. So my life trajectory changed, and I was getting this whirlwind tour to Middle East. But the idea was very simply, all of the skills that you've had in your life, whether it's pheasant hunting or elk hunting or negotiating when a guy's got a knife in your back and asks you to give up the cheese, or knowing the difference that the vehicle that's slowing down and you hear the music blaring and it turns down, they're not stopping to ask for directions. All of those skills can help a pre-deployment U.S. Army soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, guard, or whatever you were calling them earlier. Yeah. And the idea was that I just had a way of putting all of those life experiences into a way that ended up being the Combat Hunter program, where people could understand those experiences and then measure most likely and most dangerous courses of action when they went to combat. So that was like the icing on the cake. So Brian and Shelley and to all the people out there that know about Combat Hunter, the idea was that turned into ASAT, which turned into SOFSAT for the special ops community, which turned into Gatekeeper and GSAT, which were for suicide and sexual harassment and sexual assault. And so now every single day I get to deal with military first responders, soldiers, sailors that want to improve themselves, improve their stake, and understand communication in dangerous and ambiguous environments. So who could have a better life? And I've got to travel to 53 countries for our government and for our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. So I'm very proud of that as well.
So Brian, what's next? What's next for you and your team, and how are you going to continue to make that impact through all the work you're doing?
Well, that's just it. It's continuing to make the impact. So we're continuing on with this, and we've gotten it to, I always do the iPhone analogy. So what Greg did with Combat Hunter is like the first iPhone model, right? So pretty awesome when it came out, but now is basically obsolete, right? So what we're creating is now we're on, model 12, and we're already creating model 14 and 15 of what we call HPPRNA, human behavior pattern recognition and analysis. So the beauty of what we can do is we can work anywhere in the world with any organization. It doesn't matter what the problem set is. We add in our human behavior touch to it and use our lenses, and it helps, one, clearly define the problem and create a framework for a solution, right? How do we get to move the goalposts here? So whether it's with law enforcement, first responders like Greg was talking about, whether it's schools, hospitals, and churches, different folks, we get to up armor the brain, so to speak, in a number of different ways. And it's not just about threat mitigation. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff we've gotten into. Is people call us. We get a lot of phone calls. We answer all of them. We will not respond to anything like crimes in progress sometimes, right. But unless it's U.S. government, I guess. But anyway, we get to play, I said, in a whole bunch of different areas, and so we're just continuing to push the envelope, get better ourselves, get better at articulating these things, and taking a process and a system and a science that works and putting it into a new domain that someone hasn't seen before.
Hey, Angel, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, I got to think about one. First of all, Greg, do you have a video game out yet? Because I'm kind of interested in that. I'm gonna get that,
No, but
like the whole virtual thing, and get the game out. Like, start just going like this.
I've worked for EA Sports. I was lucky enough to help give them some good ideas for video games, and also Bohemia Interactive.
Doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
So if anybody wants us to lend our touch to their stuff, we were lucky enough to spend 18 months working with DARPA on a program that was to make people easier to read those violent and dangerous situations that are coming up. We have fun. We have fun every day. You know what? Yeah, it's dangerous, and the pay is low and the hours are long. But you're serving your country, you're serving your fellow man. It's wonderful. What are the downsides? I haven't seen them yet.
It's work worth doing, basically.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask, say, when you talk about human behavior and pattern recognition and the development and evolution of that technology and that methodology, in a city like Chicago, and I have to use Chicago because I live
Sure.
Do you find in law enforcement and in government that there's a propensity to want to bring you guys in, or are they like, no, we don't really want that because we really want the optics on something like that, and it's really kind of hard and conflicting.
So I'll start. Does
that make sense?
Yeah. So it's hard. So here's the thing. One, most training or solutions are what we call at bang. Right? They go, okay, here's the problem. This is where we need to address it. And we're like, no, putting a camera there is going to record the person's homicide. Putting a shot spotter out there is going to tell you something you already know. You could go ask any police officer, anyone living in that neighborhood, and go, hey, if there's going to be gunfire tonight, where do you think it's going to be at? And they're going to point to the corner where it's going to be at. And then you'll get later that night, oh, shot spotter detected this gunshot. It's like, thank you for telling us something we already know. That's all at bang, right? That doesn't prevent anything.
Too little, too late. Yeah.
And the whole idea of mitigating these things, it sounds intuitive, and people go, yeah, oh, cool, I get it. But then the solutions they apply are still that right of bang, right? And it's natural. We look for technological solutions. We want things. It's easier for me to sell you this thing. Here, you can hold this in your hand, Shalom and Angel, and you can play with it. You can touch it, and you can see it, and you go, oh, okay, I get it. I'm teaching you a think with a K, not a thing. Right. So the idea is we're never going to get ahead of these issues if all we're doing is responding to them. We have to take a step back and see what can we build in to mitigate these things. And most of these situations that become catastrophic, a lot of them can be very much prevented with proper training. Right. It's about developing people, but instead we buy a new technology and we say we use this. Or what happens too, and this happens in the military a lot, is like everything becomes very procedural. So when this happens, you have option A, B, and C. All right, you chose C, then you have subset 1, 2, and 3 to pick from. Well, that's not how it works. That's not how it works in real life, right? You have to have an architecture, a framework, and you have to develop that best person to the best of their ability and equip them with everything they have, and then allow them to make the right decision at the right time for the right reason. But a lot of that responsibility gets taken away every time we say you can't do this. It's not unlike the Marine Corps, right? So when I first went in and I had some pay issues and I was like an E4, and I would look up and the sign over here said, all right, E5 and above. So if you're a sergeant and above, you got to go to this area and got help right away. If you're below that, you had to go wait your turn over here, right? Well, by the time I left the Marine Corps, that sign said E5 and below. Okay, so that means the special line was over there. And if you were now a sergeant or below, you were general population. Well, what did that say to me? It said, you no longer rate. You don't get to do this. All right, you need more oversight. It's like, well, we're going the wrong direction with that, right? You need to develop those people so you can allow them to do what it is that they're supposed to do. And so police officers get it. We get, because of our podcast and what we do, we get calls, emails all the time. And it's always the same general profile of a person, right? It's a police officer, at least 10 years or so of experience or somewhere around there. They've been a training officer in some capacity, and they've been around a lot, and they're looking for something else because the solutions they have aren't working, and they know it. And they listen to a conversation that we have and they go, we need to get you in here. Now, getting through the rest of it is very difficult. There's a big leadership problem right now in the United States. Law enforcement agencies, people are scared. Leaders are scared to make decisions. They don't want to make the wrong one and get held. You know, I mean, there's a lot going on there. Those dynamics really play into it. Plus, what do people do? All right, we need newer guns, or we need more CQB training, right? We need to go boot doors and ram cars. And our thing is, you're not going to shoot your way out of this problem. You're not going to arrest your way out of this problem. You're not going to kill your way out of this problem. So let's use the most important 6 inches on the battle space, as Mattis used to say, and that's right up here between your ears. That's it. We need to increase cognition. But a lot of people don't know what that is, and they don't want to take the time to do it, right? This is time intensive. So people who get it, we say get it. They have it at hello. They want it. Other people, there's all of these other factors involved. So.
And learning what we do is not unlike learning a new language. You start with very small things and then you build on it. And the next thing you know, you've got the words that go along with it, and then a sentence, and then a paragraph. The problem is that, I'll give you street psychology 101. We're all unique little snowflakes with our little needs, and we live in a little Fabergé egg. Remember those that you look in and you can change the perspective a little bit? So when I come to you and I go, hey, this is a great thing, and if you trained in it, the guy looks at me and says, yeah, Angel, to answer you, yeah, but you're not for Chicago. And I go, yeah, Brian is. And they go, yeah, but he's from Beverly. I'm from across the street. You get defensive. Why do you get defensive? Because if it was important, somebody else would have taught me this a long time ago. Then we go in and teach the SEALs or the Deltas or the SWAT team or something, and they go, time out. This is the greatest course I've ever taken. I've learned more about critical thinking and how to deal with situations. Where can I get it? But then you go to your training officer, and your training officer goes, dude, this is my desk, my office.
Is it post-certified?
And because I don't know it, it can't be that damn good. And then let me see somebody that went to the course. And if it's not somebody I vetted, and I'll tell you right now, the government is trying to stovepipe all this money down. They're spending billions of dollars on a thing, like Brian said, on a toy or a tool. And the idea is the only way that you can understand and know another human being is to take a knee like Saucedo did with me and talk to that person, talk to him face to face, get inside of these communities and talk to the people and listen. And that's how you're going to adopt it. But already Brian's pissed off everybody in Chicago. I think I've pissed off everybody in Detroit. You don't think that's it. You
can't piss off the Chicago Police Department anymore. They're already very angry.
The idea is it's not the individual cops. Cops hate bad cops. Soldiers hate bad soldiers. So that's not the environment that we're coming into. What we're coming into is human behavior increases cognition, allows me to sense, make, and problem solve and answer those hard situations. And guess what? Not everything's a hard situation, but if we deal with it at bang, then we got nowhere to go. It's a crapshoot. The rest of my life depends on this nanosecond that I'm involved in now. Are you telling me I couldn't have done something a minute or 5 minutes or a day ago? So that's where we are. We're left of that bang to make sure that you can think your way out of a tough problem rather than having to fight or shoot your way out of one.
Sounds like driving solutions around situational awareness, so you don't put yourself in those areas where you're at least prepared for them.
But I would agree with you, Angel, up to a point. If you're in the line of work that we're all in, and you don't have situational awareness, then you need to retire. You need to go somewhere and hide.
Somewhere else.
Okay? What I'm telling you is the key. What trumps situational awareness is advanced critical thinking. You have to be able to take a look at a situation, examine the likely outcomes of that situation, and say, this is where I can use the lowest amount of energy or violence or language to get what I need to get done without putting somebody else in a trick bag or getting somebody hurt.
So my last question over here, as we always do at the end of the podcast, and again, the time has flown. You've shared a lot. You've shared a lot about your backgrounds. You've shared a lot about and the passion for what you do. And obviously, we have up here on the screen ArcadiaCognerati.com, where people can learn more, including that podcast that you just mentioned, Left of Greg, which I love. So be sure to check out the podcast. Same place where you can find We All Serve, by the way. But I want to give you both an opportunity to highlight, again, organizations that you're involved in, because I know behind that passion for the work that you do continues, and I think that's actually how we connected. You continue to be involved in a lot of great causes. So, Brian, I mentioned Carry the Load earlier. I know you're super involved over there. Tell us.
Greg and I, Greg and I are both heavily involved with Carry the Load. They're an incredible organization based out of Dallas, Texas. And, they're originally started by a couple former SEALs who wanted to bring back the true meaning of Memorial Day, right? So they're hanging out and barbecues and people are partying and all this stuff. And they're like, hey, this is not what Memorial Day should be. This is about, honoring those who went before us. So they started this organization called Carry the Load. Obviously it's, hey, we all have to carry the load for each other, right? So it was honoring those who serve. So military, law enforcement, first responders, that type of group. And then it's since grown, right? It's grown massively because it kind of resonated just like it did with me and Greg, with a lot of people like, oh, that just makes sense, right? So what they did is they have a bunch of national relays that they do for Memorial Day. They do stuff on September 11th at some national cemeteries where we go out. Unfortunately, it's not going to be out here by me in San Diego this year, but a couple years ago, couldn't do it last year because of COVID. But before that, you go out and you just celebrate and understand 9/11 for what it is, and then you literally go and help clean the cemetery and clean gravestones, and it's a symbolic gesture to those who went before us. And I get super emotional talking about this stuff because it really, really hits home and it's important to me. And the thing about Carry the Load is what they do is they help out other nonprofits. So they have a huge audience and a huge reach, and they can have these national things, and they can collect a whole bunch of money from folks. And then what they do is they go to some of those smaller nonprofits. They don't have that reach, and they help fund them. They go, okay, what are you doing for veterans? Oh, you're helping them to get the physical therapy they need after a traumatic incident or something. We're going to help you out with that, help fund your operation. What are you guys doing over here? So it gets very direct. So they're one of these big organizations, but they're able to stay small by just funneling that down to all of these other small ones. So it's really great what they do, and I'm a big fan of them and a big supporter of Carry the Load.
And I don't know if I mentioned, but I had Josh Lewis on my radio show a while back. So yeah, good stuff. Greg, any other organizations that you want to give a shout out to?
No, but you know what? If I can have just a few seconds, I want to say this. I want to say that Shalom, we met through a very serendipitous fashion. Talk about a street handshake that turns into this, and you open the door and look who's here.
Angel.
Through you, we met Angel, who is now sleeping on my couch, and I don't know what to do with him to get him evicted.
We got Mike Dedko over here.
Oh, there we go, Coach.
We got Coach.
The idea is...
I'm sorry. Go ahead. You're saying something serious. Go ahead.
Everything that you do matters. Those things that you don't do matter. You have such outreach. Folks, look these two up. Look at what they do. And for us, for Arcadia, we love to solve hard problems. So if you've got a problem that human behavior pattern recognition analysis can help solve, give us a call. If you got money, we're going to charge you a lot. If you don't have any money, we're not going to charge you anything because we're committed to get you to where you need to be to solve those hard problems in your community. And these two guys and this show is just one of the radio show and other broadcasts that they do that help everybody. So I'm honored to be on here, and I'm sure Brian would echo that for Arcadia.
Absolutely.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you. And one thing, since you brought up Coach Ditka, real quick, funny coach story. We were at Ditka's restaurant in Chicago years ago. I was with a group of friends, went upstairs to use the bathroom.
Which one? The Oak Brook or downtown?
No, downtown. Yeah. And so we were there, and I'm coming back from the bathroom, and this is right before deployment. I was leaving in a couple weeks, and there's Coach sitting there at the table, and he's eating like a food, and he's over in like the bar area. And I walked past, and he just looked up and made eye contact, and I just, oh, hey, Coach. And he looked right at me and just stopped eating for a second, said, "Good luck." And I kept walking, and I was like, what does Coach Ditka know about my upcoming deployment that I don't know?
Gosh.
I was terrified because it was,
so
but
funny.
I got the blessing from the coach. So I thought it was good. So.
That's wild. Angel, close us out, my friend.
Well, thank you guys both for coming on. I really want to connect with you offline after we get off the cast, and you guys are just fantastic. And thank you for being so real and so authentic, and the work that you're doing, not just to help military veterans, but to help, and what you said, Brian, really, really touched me. I do a lot of things over at Fort Rosecrans when I was in San Diego every year, Memorial Day, trekking out there and just saying hi to my brothers and sisters. And I look forward to connecting with you guys and helping in any way we can. Please feel free to reach out to me or Shalom anytime.
Absolutely.
Thanks for your
appreciate it.
service, both
Thank
of
you
you.
so much, both of you.
Thank you. Looking forward to doing many more good things together. And that's a wrap for us here on episode 49. It's a pleasure to be back with my brother, with my friend Angel Torres over here. Episode 49, episode 50. Can't believe we've made it that far. It's next week, same time, same bad channel, right here with Priya Sridhar.
I was saying the same thing about 50 last year, man. I was like, damn, I'm still breathing. This is amazing.
I know.
Usually on Memorial Day, I do the Murph, and I just want to tap out. I'm done.
And no, it's great to continue this, and really, I know what an inspiration this is in some of these conversations, and it's fun. We had a bunch of comments pop up over here, so definitely get in touch with us. You certainly can do that. Subscribe, rate, review, share, and comment, and we see everything, and we will talk about it on the next show. So with that, that's a wrap. Angel, see you next time, and Brian and Greg, thanks for all that you do. Thanks for your service.
Everybody.
We'll see you next time. Take care.